Welcome back to English Voice Blog. My name is Lena Martinenko. Today, let me introduce a special guest to you. He is a professor of University of Bedfordshire and an IELTS Vice President, Anthony Green. Anthony knows everything about exams. We met last month in Kiev at IELTS seminar and discussed a few useful things about exams. It gives me real pleasure to introduce a special person to you. Please meet Anthony Green. This is a professor from Britain. Hello.
Hello.
Anthony knows everything about testing, and today I'd like you to answer a few questions related to it.
Of course.
Please tell me, what's the best way for students to prepare for the international test?
So if we're thinking about taking an international test, the best thing to do is to think about why you're taking the test and what kind of experience you're looking for after the test. If you're taking a test, for example, to move to another country, you should think about what kind of language you need to use when you arrive in that country. And the test is not the end of the process. The test is just a way to get you to some place that you want to be in the future. And the best way to prepare for the test is to think about learning the language that you need when you arrive in the country where you're going to use the language. So studying in a general way and learning through conversation, through watching movies, through participating in reading and writing the language that you need when you arrive in that country is going to be the most effective way of learning. Of course, it's important to know what the test is like and to understand the different kinds of tasks that are going to be used on the test. But just thinking about the test is not enough. It's life after the test that's much more important.
Are there any specific or particular tricky moments in listening, reading, writing, and speaking that you can speak about, probably judging by your experience or different examples?
So I can think that many people, when they want to learn how to speak or to write for a test, they very often try to do the kinds of tasks that are on the test. And usually some of those tasks are quite easy, some of those tasks are very tricky and difficult. But the best way is to focus on the things you can do now and to take small steps to improve. It's not to try to work with the most difficult questions on the test all the time, because those can make it very difficult for you to learn because they're simply too difficult. But if you slowly build up your ability, then you're likely to do better when you actually get to the test.
But to be more specific, for example, when the student has been preparing for listening, right? How to develop the skills so that you could get, I don't know, 6, 7.
So again, if you think about the kinds of listening that happens on the test, that's too narrow, because if you develop a broad listening ability, you listen to things that you're interested in, you try to find opportunities to listen, but also test your own understanding of what you listen to. So think about what is the information that, if I'm living in another country, what's the information that I need from the thing that I'm listening to? So if you're listening to some information about what's happening in the city, then can you get the key details of what it is that's going to be happening in that city? Or if you're reading an article about some recent event in the news in that country, then can you see what are the key points of the information that you would need to understand that news story? And then if you can test your own understanding, build up what you're able to get from that text, and increase your knowledge of vocabulary, increase your knowledge of how news articles or how articles in newspapers and magazines meant for people who live in that country. If you understand how those work, then take that knowledge back to the test. You will get the 6.5. If you just focus on always trying to read an IELTS exam type question, then it's more difficult to get to 6.5 because you're always limited to just what's on the test. And your life after the test will be more difficult because of that.
But don't you think that focusing and drilling, especially in IELTS format, will do you good?
Actually, I did research on this, and I looked at students who were preparing to come and study in universities in Britain. And some of them took just an IELTS preparation course. So it was just what you described. They did constantly drilling in how to do test tasks. So they did an essay every day, they did a reading task every day, and we saw how much their scores improved over a period of time. At the end of the course, they did another test, and we saw how much their score improved. We looked at another group of people who went and just studied on a more general language course given by the university. And there they were not learning how to do IELTS, but they were learning how to do projects. They were learning how to do the kinds of things they do when they get into university, which is listening to lectures, reading journal papers, and putting those ideas together and making some kind of assignment. And actually those people did just as well, or even better, on the IELTS test at the end of the course than the people who just focused on IELTS. But they had a much richer understanding of what life was like in the university than the people who just did the test.
Thank you, that's great. Last question is about teachers and their preparation process. What mistakes should teachers avoid so that their students could get the highest score?
So with teachers, I think one or two things happen when they start preparing students for tests. Very often they forget what good education is. And good education in language means letting the students use the language. So using language productively in speech and in writing. Very often when it comes to test preparation, they can think they can get more information into the students by a teacher-centered approach. So the teacher tells people, this is what the test is like, you must do this, you must do that. And that's not the most effective way to get people to learn. Very commonly, teachers will focus just on doing practice test tasks. And that often then is boring because it's not interesting to do a lot of test tasks. But it also means they're not focused on what the students can learn. So tests have a lot of questions at all different levels. So there are some easy questions, which the students don't need to do because they're already easy for those students. And there are some very difficult questions, which really the students are not going to learn at this point, but they still do them in the practice test. But if the teachers can focus more on what is realistic for the students to achieve, they can improve their score by looking at how to help them learn those learnable things without worrying about the very easy and the very difficult things that a lot of test practice always includes.
Thank you, Anthony, for your advice and recommendations for sharing your experience. I wish all the students to get the score they need. Make use of the video and good luck with the exam. See you next time here on English Voice Blog.